bridges, bridges in the sky, they're shining in the sun. Healing worldwide, they can change two things tomorrow. They are languages and letters, they are poetry and all. They are love and understanding, and they're better than before. They are languages and letters, they are poetry and all. They are love and understanding, and they're better than before. There are canyons, they are yawning in the night. They are rank and bitter anger, they are all the void of light. They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and soul foreboding, and they're oh so very wide. They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and soul foreboding, and they're oh so very wide. Let us build a bridge of music, let us cross with a song. Let us span another canyon, let us write another song. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're up and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and we are and on our way. Oh, and if someone should ask us
where we're off and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. We will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. Thank you, Bill Staines. Welcome to Wednesday World Call-In. We're going to be talking about the ultimate dictator today. We have with us Dennis Carius. Hello, Dennis. How are you? Dennis, are you there?
Jeff, Dennis is doing good. It's kind of hard to hear you right now. There seems to be a problem with the audio.
Okay, how about now? It seems to be coming through all right. I don't know why. As a matter of fact, I'm quite loud.
Just a test.
Okay, I'm going to just see if I could get this here. Let me see. Here's Susan here. Okay, Susan, are you there?
Jeff, you're crackling.
Are you there, Sue?
Crackling. That's the word, Susan.
Yeah, hi, Dennis.
Oh, hi. I can hear you real good, Susan.
Oh, the magic of a telephone.
Right.
So am I still crackling?
Yeah, you're still crackling, Jeff.
Okay, let me do something. I'm going to do something. I'm going to go on the telephone instead. Let me go on the telephone here. And I'm going to go to the telephone, and I'm going to try this here. How is that?
Try to, yeah.
You can read the invitation. That would be great.
I'm going to go there right now, so you can talk about your thoughts today while I find that.
Can you hear me all right now?
That's great. It's just that right now.
How about now?
Can you? Oh, yeah, that's better, Jeff.
Yeah, you do something.
That's better?
That's better? Yes, better, yes.
Am I echoing?
To read the, no, you're fine.
Jeff Better. Oh, that's his name, Jeff Better. Okay.
Sorry, you guys.
Okay.
Okay, by the way, you're listening to Bridges Programming. I'm working on this through the phone now because I guess for some reason or other, the phones are working better than the microphones. I don't understand it at all. But anyway, you're listening to Wednesday World Call-In on Bridges Programming. It's brought to you by the Human Renewable Energy Measurement, the HREM.org, the hrem.org. It stands for Human Renewable Energy Measure, and that's because just like gravity, we need to have a measurement so we have a fair shot for humanity. And we stop killing each other and we stop poisoning the planet. And without a start point, we don't know how to get to a fair point or a point that works. So we are working on something called the HREM. We start all our programs throughout Bridges Programming to try to get this concept across. It's not an institution you put in place. It's just a measurement, just like we measure gravity. You don't put gravity in place. You don't do any. We all need education, food, and shelter for a fair amount of work, which is about an hour a day with the natural resources. That's the point. Anybody can call in and talk about the ultimate dictator, which we think we're talking about today. And the phone number here is 347-215-6731. And that's actually the number I'm calling in on now to talk on the show. So you can actually, you'll sound as good as anybody else who calls in. So that's great. And we also have a chat room open called Bridge to Humanity on Blog Talk Radio. And we also are on Google Hangouts. So you can actually go on to Google Hangouts. I'm sorry, I don't know how yet to put people on the video portion of it, but you can definitely get onto the audio portion of it.
And, we're going to consult with our technical advisor pretty soon.
Okay, but this is all the stuff we're working on. So, but the goal here is to grow the HREM.org, get that HREM.org out there, and make sure that people know that they have to work 1 hour a day. You don't need a minimum wage because your education, food, and shelter for that 1 hour is taken care of. And you can have as far as education you want. And if you want to call in anywhere in the world, this is an easy phone call. We're all over the world. If you're on Skype or you're on Google or you're on computer, anywhere in the world, you can call in and give us your opinion. And we want to give everybody a show and give them their soapbox to talk about what they choose to talk about, as long as it's not hate. Give us your idea on how you can help fix the world. And someone was on the program last Sunday and saying, well, why can't everybody come up with their own ideas and run for office at no cost? Well, this is a way of doing that. You have a way of coming on we're giving you an open soapbox. And the more people who listen to our programming, the bigger your soapbox is. That's why Dennis likes to be on the show. He likes a big soapbox, right, Dennis?
Oh, yes, that's right, Jeff. Yes.
And so I think this was Dennis's idea last Sunday, for open to have everybody run for office. No party. You don't need a party. You need just people to run for office. And that's basically what the concept is of the theoretically the Communist Party. But the Communist Party is just a group of people working together to get the best ideas they can to get so this helps humanity. But we labeled it so it has a lousy name. So we've got to take the label off the names, and that's the problem. We need to get.
Because once something's been labeled, it's pretty permanent.
Right, they labeled it. They put it in the
original definition and recovers, the flavor of what was really intended, let's say. And it's a shame because oftentimes, like a lot of these things that are, they just take a statement out of context, or somebody uses the name of the a system or the religion or whatever, and says that I'm doing this in the name of that, and it's totally bogus. It doesn't have anything to do with the original intent of whatever the system was or the religion was. I mean, it's really sad how really fine ideas and concepts that could be helpful to humanity on the whole, just get lost in the distorted propaganda that some group wants to promote its own agenda, and it sees, oh, okay, this is real popular right now. Let's seize on that system and just take this part of it, and we'll make it our own, and we'll operate under the name of communism or socialism or capitalism or all the different names of your religions. Well, we'll operate under the name of this, and that gives us credibility right away, and nobody's looking too carefully, and we'll say, well, this is what it means, and this is what's intended, and so we're operating the way that this system is dictating us, for us to operate or suggesting that we operate.
But
and it's totally bogus. It's just taking.
Hold on. I want to clarify that one more time. It's actually worse than that. It's actually much worse than that, because when you go to a party or you meet someone, and the first question, not the only place it doesn't happen is in the voting world, but in most cases in our society, they say, "What do you do for a living?" And if you say you're a ditch digger, they dismiss you. But if you say you're a doctor or a surgeon, they put you into a different category. And then they think about how much money you make. So it's immediately pigeonholed, so they can dismiss it or decide what to do with you. And that's what happens with anything. And I'll give you a good example. You get something that's sort of unique, and you have it at home. Let's say it's an appliance, and then you stick that appliance, that unique appliance, inside of a cupboard somewhere. Well, you basically can dismiss it now. It's off the table. You don't have to think about it anymore. And it's in a cupboard in case somebody else brings it up. And oh, I've got one of those. It's in the cupboard. Well, that's how people think. They dismiss it immediately because they can pigeonhole it. And people love to pigeonhole things because it makes them so they don't have to think about it. And that's one of our big problems in this world. We discussed that today, that we
It simplifies things.
And we homogenize them. In other words, like you were talking about earlier, you said it's very easy to sketch stuff, and it was fun to do, and you could make animations, and it was. But now you've got to figure out the whole damn computer program to do it, and it's not how well you can sketch; it's how well you can figure out the. And then the same thing holds true for our soapbox. Years ago, people literally got up in a soapbox in front of the town hall, and people listened to them, and they stood on a box and they talked about what they want to do to help the system. But now you can't do that. As a matter of fact, you can't even legally congregate. So you have to have enough money to get the multinationals, corporations, to allow you to have a soapbox and to run for president, for instance, this time. Not that you have good ideas. Who's got the better outfit on, or what religion are you? Not what your ideas are to help the society. So these are some of the things. Go ahead.
When you talk about how inexpensive it was to just stand up on a little box in the middle of the town square and speak. But now you have to have, again, the technology that we use to communicate. We have to actually hire someone to translate it to us so that we can actually use it.
Right.
It's not that it's that expensive, because a lot of these programs are free. But still, there's this huge obstacle in the way of speech. If the technology itself becomes a dictator and an obstacle to communication, it enhances it, but it also creates an obstacle, which is it's a strange kind of contradictory type of thing right now. But I don't know. That's what we have to work with. I don't know whether it's good or bad, but it's definitely harder to do very simple things because you have to take along with you all the apparatus, and you've got to have a phone, you've got to have a computer, you've got to know how to use these things, and they keep getting upgraded and updated, and you go through those steps. And of course, they're trying to sell you something along the way. You can upgrade this for free, but look, if you do this and pay a little bit, you can have something even more spectacular. So, these are just
And
ways
the other thing
to
is little pop-ups come that say to you, do you want to download this for free? And if you push the wrong button, you get a virus. So you got to be real careful on it. You have to read every single
Then you got to
detail.
pay someone else to get rid of that.
Yeah, anyway, we're going to get to the dictatorship today sometime. But I want to have you know that if you look on Google Hangouts, you'll notice a book up there called Illyria's World. It's a free download, and it talks about a robot and climate change. And the robot, by the way, is real. I'll bring a picture of it up on one of the business cards that we had for 20 years ago. And I'll show you the robot online. And it's about that robot that's physically real. And about a grandchild who was walking with the robot, and that's in a fantasy world, but it talks about climate change, and it's a great little book if anybody wants to download it free. I wonder if I'm not talking clearly. Can you hear me loud enough over there? Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's a good thing. And then you can look at that on a non-profit company that we sort of are custodians of called Renew the Earth. And it's a free download on Renew the Earth. And we also have Earthling letters on that. And that's also part of our programming to promote renewable energy and to promote a sustainble society. And we use that word loosely because we think that's sustainable is really subjective. I don't know what, I'm really not sure.
Well, sustainability is intimately linked with our ability to understand the needs of nature. And that will take us back to the dictator that we're talking about today.
Okay, and Dennis, now you have your thoughts about dictators, don't you?
Well, Jeff, I really do believe there are dictators in this world. And, on the list of dictatorships, number 8 on the list of dictatorships is Saudi Arabia. And they get most of their weapons from countries like us who want a good price on oil.
Okay, who is number 1?
Well, I don't have the list in front of me.
Well, who's number 2? I mean, you said they're number 8, but I want to know who the other 7 are for dictators.
Right. I was reading this in the New York Times newspaper. This was quite a while ago. Now, it might have changed. Maybe they became number 7 or number 9. Right now, I believe they are number 8. I don't know all.
Now is New York is the New York Times a mainstream media?
Well, I trust the New York Times much more than I do some mainstream media.
Okay, so we're taking that information, that number 8 dictatorship. But who puts that dictatorship? How does that dictatorship get into position?
Well, they take a democratically elected leader out of there, like they did in Iran.
Who takes a democratic? Who does that? I mean, you say they.
I wish I was wrong. I wish I was wrong, Jeff.
Who is they? Who is they?
Well, when you think about countries like the United States or England, countries that are at the top of the list. For example, we send our troops overseas in the Middle East where they have oil.
Okay, let's go there. When you said the United States and England, the England has another name, doesn't it, called the United Kingdom?
Yes, or even Great Britain, yes. Right.
So the United Kingdom, when they became each one was individual kingdoms, they were controlling the economy. So they said to control the economy, instead of fighting amongst ourselves as kings, why don't we unite the kingdoms and control the world economy with our united kingdoms? So we can put in forces that control the population, like we do with our kingdoms, and then we can keep control over the economic system on a worldwide basis. Does that sound plausible? Does that feed in to the actual dictatorship like a king would do?
That's a really good question, because I love the concept of countries getting together. Have you ever heard of something called the United Nations?
Yeah, but aren't they just puppets of the economic system?
Well, that's the one problem. I mean, the 5 countries at the very top of the UN, you know, I mean, the U.S. is one of them, Russia. So, yes, unfortunately, we may need to reform things if they ever get dysfunctional.
Well, I think they are dysfunctional, and the reason why they're dysfunctional is because we have an economy that doesn't benefit humanity. So for humanity, it's dysfunctional. But for the very wealthy people around the world, it's very functional, and that's why they control the world economic system. So the key, I just want to get to this back to this dictatorship stuff. The dictators we are putting in there are put in there by the United Kingdoms of the world, not the Great Britain, but other very wealthy people. And they control the United Nations. They control the federal governments, the Fed economic system, the Federal Reserve. They control the World Bank. I mean, am I right about these things, or am I just imagining this?
No, I agree with you, Jen.
As far as we can know, this is the dynamic that's occurring.
Right. So the dictatorship is totally put in by mankind. It's not the ultimate dictator. Now, let me ask you a question. Can a dictator live for 10,000 or 1,000,000 years or forever?
No, I know the answer to that one. No,
okay, they cannot. So there's something that controls the instituted dictators that has much bigger power than the actual dictators that we, as in a game sense, we as a society, as a species, are putting in to control the economy. There's a bigger thing afoot that will actually get rid of these dictators, is it not?
Yes.
Do you want me to read the summary to bring us to that?
Yes, let's do that.
And then we'll probably take a break here. Okay, so what was written in our summary today was, will the ultimate dictator take us out? Who is this ultimate dictator, you may ask? It is nature. We need to ask, are we essential for natural world progress? Are we essential for the universe? Bucky Fuller would say. Are we, as a human species, useful for the plans of nature? What are the plans of nature? Can we ever know? Do we understand instinctively what is required of us to be, quote, good citizens of the biosphere? Are we acting accordingly? I guess we shall see.
Well, here we go again. The ultimate thing is that no matter who we put in office or whatever we do as a species, we're
going to have mortal life.
We're not right. The only thing. Right, you may live 100, and like even Castro, he's probably 100 years old now.
I was just thinking of Castro too. He's gonna be.
Yeah, I mean Castro's, and you look at Dick Cheney, right? And Cheney's, Cheney's been around forever. He's had many heart transplants. These people have, they can keep themselves alive with some kind of medical. But the reality is that they're going to be taken out and if we keep on killing people and we keep on poisoning our atmosphere and our soil and our water, we're going to be taken out as a species. So there is an ultimate dictator here. Now, Dennis always says that we got to save our planet, right? Dennis, you'd say that, but you know really well that it's not the planet that's going to disappear. It's going to be the human species and other species will take out if we have a nuclear war, or if we continue to pollute the atmosphere. So we have so the sun heats us up so much that we can't grow food, or we lose our water supply. We get poured on with rain and flooding. I mean, these things can happen, and what controls that is not the dictators we put in, but nature. Nature is the ultimate control, the ultimate dictator. And I'm willing to say to you that we as a species, nature, as we evolved, gave us a brain. And maybe we've been around, I'm guessing now, millions of years as a species. And we've been evolving or learning. When I say evolving, I don't mean evolving just physically, but we've been learning things. When someone my grandparents taught me stuff like, don't put cold water into a hot pot, or don't put hot water into a cold pot because you'll break the pot or the glass container. And all of a sudden we learned that if you put a spoon in, that wouldn't happen as readily. And then we got Pyrex glass, so we learned that. We learn as a species. And we just learned 600 years ago that the world wasn't flat, it was round. And we've been around for a long time, but we just 600, and then we learned just 400 years ago that this obvious thing like gravity is, can be measured. And it was obvious. For millions of years we knew that gravity was here, but we never named it. And we never figured it out. So I'm just trying to say to you that we're in the process of an evolution thing, and what I'm saying now is that we all know that all humans, it's not nice to kill each other, and we know that's obvious, and we know we shouldn't be bombing each other. We know we shouldn't be putting things into the atmosphere that's going to damage it or polluting our water. We know these things. We've learned them over the years. And we know we shouldn't be messing up our soil so we can keep growing things. And we know we should have education so people continue to learn. And we know that you shouldn't have slavery because there's so many natural resources, because we've had so many ideas and labor and ideas that gave us technology and gave us natural resources to make us more economical, meaning it's easier to get to for humanity. That we should be able to support people for about 5% of a workday life for all basic needs met. Now we know this, but we have to name it. And that's why I think to you the ultimate dictator is nature, or if you want to be religious about it, God. Because all religions say basically what we're saying. All humans do, we have to respect our planet and our neighbors and not to want or covet anything. So these are the things that we have to, we know these, they're obvious. The question now is, how do we get there? So that's why we came up with this measure, which we all use 2 million calories of food and water a year. We all know we have education, which is easy to get to. We should have no charge. We all know we need shelter. I know Dennis wants to buy a new house now. He's been looking at his old house, thinking about moving to a newer house, which is going to take more energy. And he can measure that energy. And he knows that he doesn't want to work more than an hour or 2 a day, really hard. And he physically can't anymore because he's getting old. So these are all the things that we're all looking at, and that's where we are. So the ultimate dictator, I think, is nature. And I'd like, but what's nice, and I call it a benevolent dictator because we have a brain, and if we use that brain, we should be in good shape. Do you agree with that, Dennis?
Well, I can't use the word agree. Well, after we take our break, I'd like to just say that, I understand when you say benevolent, I love the word benevolent dictator, because I don't think there's anything evil about either God or nature. When I go out walking in nature, I am so thankful for this planet that we've got, and I don't want to ruin it. But after we take our break, I'd like to get more into that.
Well, hold on. Why do you think it's? I know people who walk around, the woods, and they say, "My God, if we can just bulldoze all these damn trees out of the way, they're dirty trees, they drop leaves. I could put a shopping mall in here, and make some money."
Oh, sure, that doesn't surprise me.
Well,
I think that's one of the problems.
Yeah, but isn't that subjective? The guy who wants to make a shopping mall or put a housing project in so they can get a good view and they can sell their houses, so the people who can afford to buy the houses have a good view, or look at the oceans or something. Waterfront properties are very expensive. Don't you think they should make the money they can and help everybody have a beautiful view?
not as much money as they think they need to make. No.
But the thing is, don't you think people, wouldn't it be nice for you to, and when you look for a house, aren't you going to look for one with a beautiful view? You don't want to look at the back of an old, bakery or something.
To me, beautiful view is when you look out that back window and you see nature. That's about as beautiful as I can picture it.
But who's to say that you should have that and somebody can't afford that, shouldn't have that view?
And I didn't say that. That's why I said that very, very, very rich people don't need to become even more rich, because that's hurting a lot of this planet and 99.9% of us.
Okay, hold that view. We're going to come back in about 5 minutes with. I want to elaborate on that, because this works in right to what we're talking about. Here's somebody who talks about they really want to have a new age type of thinking, and they want crystals, and they want to buy books, and they really want to be able to look what life's all about. And this is Alien Folk Life, Joan Crosby and Paul Mercer, and they give us permission to use their stuff on air. And I want to thank them very much. And they also wrote the Energy song. And this is called Hot Dog Heaven, and we're a quarter of the way through the program.
I'm an ordinary New Age guy with 3 kids and a wife, looking for the answers to the mysteries of life. I've refreshed through 13 lifetimes to try and make amends, and on Wednesdays I go drumming with my New Age friends. I know that life's a journey and everything must change, and something happened yesterday that left me feeling strange. I was going to buy some crystals in the favorite store downtown, and I turned the corner and looked up. This is what I found. My New Age crystal bookstore is Hot Dog Heaven now, where once I searched for inner bliss, the innards from a cow. They'll still make you one with everything, but it's not the same somehow. It's dog instead of dogma, and Hot Dog Heaven now. My inner child was angry. To be frank, he was incensed. But my inner parent told him there are no accidents. Some cosmic forces caused the plans I made to be reversed, and brought me to this hot dog stand, perhaps not for the worst. Before I gave up eating, by and by the dozen. But what is in a former life? This hot dog was my cousin. Joseph Campbell said, "With your loose lead you ought to follow, but this double but one silly dog is awful hard to swallow." My New Age crystal bookstore is Hot Dog Heaven now, where once I searched for innards, there's innards from a cow. They'll still make you one with everything,
Yes.
but it's not the same somehow. It's munching and not eating, and Hot Dog Heaven now. Okay, got me thinking, and I know it's kind of hard. If there's a hot dog heaven, could there be a hot dog God? Are the streets all paved with mustard in that holy hot dog land? The monster liar guards the gate with a wheel in each hand. And if there's a hot dog heaven, is there a total hell where carnivores run screaming when they hear the dinner bell? Some questions we can't answer, and perhaps we shouldn't try. But as that neon crank lights up the night, I sit and wonder why.
My New Age crystal bookstore is hot dog heaven now. Once I've heard from him, there's news from a cow. Make you one with everything, but it's not the same somehow.
It's kraut instead of crystal.
Crystal!
Hot dog heaven now.
It's been coming through here too recently.
Trash cans and not ash cans, and hot dog heaven.
Dennis, are you there? I lost Dennis, I think. Did I lose Dennis here? Or I might have lost Dennis. Let me see if I can find Dennis. I think I lost Dennis here. Let me see here. Did I lose you, Dennis? I lost Dennis. I gotta see if I can get Dennis back here. Why did I lose Dennis? How did I lose Dennis? I got a whole bunch of questions to ask Dennis. Let me see if I can get Dennis back here. Okay. Where is Dennis? Are you back, Dennis? Dennis, are you back? Okay, I lost you somehow. Didn't I lose you somehow?
Well, yes, it wasn't me, believe me.
Okay, well, look, I understand that. I'm going to play a song here. I hope you can hear it. I'm going to play a song called This Old House, because as my house is getting older, I have to fix it up, and you're getting older, and you want to get a new house because your house is getting old. So I'm going to play a song, and it's by Stuart Hambell, Hambel, probably written many, many years ago. And I'm going to play it. Let me see if I can get this to happen now. I don't know if you'll hear it all right. Can you hear that all right? Keep on losing Dennis. Can you hear the song, Dennis?
I hear a song, yes. Nice song. This house no longer, it's getting ready to meet the same day. Well, that's this old house, and there's a couple of things. Go ahead, Sue.
I was dancing. It was great.
So that's a good thing. I really enjoyed that song. That's the first time you ever heard that song, Dennis?
Oh, yes, Jeff. That's the first time I've ever heard that.
And you were dancing too. I can tell you're out of breath.
How did you know I was dancing? You're good.
Well, This old house, well, the thing is, now here's the thing. I want to get back to our conversation before the break. Now, I live in the woods, and I live very in a magnificent place that I believe is magnificent, because I look out my window and I see deer, and there's not another house around me, and it's a long driveway. I see a squirrel every so often, and deer, and we have chickens, and we have woodpeckers on the feeders, and it's just a great place to live. And I think, I think it's a great place. But most people could not afford to live where we live. And some people who live in Manhattan come up here and think this is the worst place in the world because they love Manhattan. So that's pretty subjective. But the problem I see, if you live in Manhattan, I couldn't afford to live in Manhattan, number one, nor do I want to. And I used to live there, and that's why I know I don't want to live there. I did that. But and I didn't like it. And you live, Dennis, you live in suburbia. You live in an area that's suburbia where there's lots of houses around. And I'm not fond of that because it's not country enough for me. But in the same token, you want to be close to town, so it's convenient. Is that right?
Yes, and believe me, Jeff, I agree with you. Where you live is also excellent. I would not want to be in the middle of Manhattan, where it's very, crowded.
Yeah, but the thing is, you could buy much cheaper if you wanted to be in the country and live here than you could live if you wanted to live in the country in suburbia. That's close to the city.
Okay.
So the question here is, what you're going to go where what you can afford to do for what your subjective things want. In other words, my subjective things is I set myself up to live far away, so I don't need to go into the city unless I choose to go. But most people, but it's the question of affordability. Now, someone who's working in Burger King who doesn't own a home, they can't think about doing what we're doing because we have more money than we need. We have excess money, so we can do things we would like to do, we choose to do, we want. Our wants are different than our needs. If we just needed the basic needs met, you would be living in, you and I would be living in a garage or the simplest hut we can live in, or maybe live in a community place like the shelter. We can live in a shelter just as much as anything else, but we choose not to live there because we work hard enough so we can afford more. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
So would you consider us greedy for having more than we need?
Oh, no, believe me, there are so many examples that I would not use the word greedy. I mentioned a 3-year-old who's screaming to get that food, grabbing that food, because he or she hasn't eaten in 2 days. That's not greedy. I'm talking about a millionaire who wants to be a billionaire, and there's no limit.
But aren't you and I considered compared to a person who has no income to speak of, and they will never had any, they couldn't afford an education, they never had a good job. Aren't we like compared to them? Aren't we millionaires compared to someone who is living on, let's say, $200 or $300 a week? From paycheck to paycheck. Aren't we considered millionaires compared to them? I mean, you don't put a dollar amount on it because it doesn't matter if they can't afford a car or even car fare to get on a bus, or they can't afford to buy food. Aren't we actually much better off than someone like that?
Well, yes, I agree. We are much better off, yes, but we're not at that limit where we're other people over in the Middle East are dying because we want to become even more rich and get that oil out of the ground.
No, but that has nothing to do with what we see. We're looking at something else because we don't want to face up to the facts that we have more than we ever could possibly need, and we're living our life very comfortable. but there are people living right near us, right smack there. You know, within. I know where you live, and I know where I've seen people begging for food. Like, I'll work for food. It's like the next major block up, and they sit in the parking lot, or they sit where people are driving by. And they say, "I'll work for food. I'm homeless. I'm a vet, or whatever." And I know, right, sometimes you see a family there with a child, and they say, "We need a place to live." I mean, we would be considered, and people drive by and they have brand new cars, or their Hummers, or their Priuses, or whatever we have. We're driving by our best cars we can buy, and we just spend $30,000-$40,000 on one of these items. And yeah, I would look at, if I was, and I'm putting myself in their position, that look at those wealthy people driving by when they can give me some food and they can give me a place to stay. We are considered, I would consider myself just as greedy as the guy who's trying to make millions of dollars overseas and putting dictators in to get them more money out of that. It's just a question of degree. So, but if nobody, if I never saw a person starving and I knew that nobody was getting shot, I would consider myself good. I would consider myself, well, I'm just ambitious, and I want another house, or I want to buy a newer car, the best technology I can have for myself and the planet, not because of money, because it's the best I can put on the planet without poisoning the air, or the ground, or the soil. But I'm not allowed to do that. And we're affected by it the same way the multimillionaire is affected. Don't. At least I see that. Can you see how we're affected by that the same way?
I do see how they are related to each other, but I do think that one is way beyond the other.
Only because of the amount of money involved, not because of the attitude. If you're someone who had a lot, supposing you had a billion, someone left you $1 billion a month to come in. You would have to say, well, in this society, I have to invest that money or do something with it. What would you do with a lot of money? And I'm just using the number, $1 billion, but it doesn't matter. Just say a lot of money. What would you do with it? Well, supposing you were Soros, David Soros. Is that his name? David? Is it David Soros? Is it David? No, George. His name is George.
Okay.
His name is George Soros, right?
Okay.
Is that his name? Supposing you had his money, or the Koch brothers' money, what would you do with it?
Well, I mean, David Soros, I was told, is doing a very good job trying to help groups, like what you're talking about. MoveOn.org is a good example.
But he's working within the economic system, and he's still making money on money. And every time you make money on money without putting something back to help the system, to help physically help people, then you're inflating the part of the game. But what would you do if you had his money? What would you do? Not what he's doing, but what would you do? Now you're in the middle of, let's say, a suburban area, and you came into an awful lot of money. What would you do to change the system?
I would try to reform the system if it got dysfunctional.
Okay, how would you do that? Those are a lot of words you put together, but what does that actually mean?
Well, I think we could reform, let's say our political system got dysfunctional, government got dysfunctional.
So you would
to start. Well, yes, I agree.
So you would take your money and you'd actually give it to politicians to run for office, so they could change the system. So you're counting on somebody else to change the system using your money.
Well, the first thing I would do is try to make it so everybody would have an effect on this. Did you ever hear of something called campaign finance reform?
How would you do it? Well, we've been trying to do that for 20 years. Why isn't it happening?
Well, that's because very, very, very rich people can stop it from happening by buying politicians who it's their job to vote.
So how? So if you had a lot of money, how would you do it differently?
Oh, if I had a lot of money, I mean, you probably would have to get involved in the system that we have right now, because we don't have campaign finance reform. My money would get politicians to get into office who could reform government.
So you're counting on giving somebody else your money so they can use their ideas to try to reform the system, because we don't have any of our own ideas. Is that the case?
Well, that's what rich people do right now. They try to use their money to influence the politicians that they support, and that's what they're doing. You know, the more money they have, the more influence they have. That's the way the system works now.
But that's the problem with it.
The other person is you're going to get more influence.
Right, but that's the problem. But that's the problem with the system. So you want to play the same exact game. If you came into $1 million a week, for argument's sake, you would play the same game that's happening now, and there'd be no change, because there are lots of people trying to do that. Like, for instance, Bernie Sanders, or for instance, the Koch brothers, or for instance, George Soros. They're all putting big money into try to make good ideas to change the system. But the system itself is corrupt. That's my problem. So how do we go ahead, like we believe that the system is corrupt, so we can't try to work within the system. We have to change the economic system so the political system becomes effective. So if everybody we knew who can afford $300 a month puts that money into changing the economic system to get the HREM concept into the vocabulary. And let's suppose we know just 20 people who would afford to spend $300 a month understanding the HREM. Try to get a first understand it, and then try to get that through social media. That would amplify this so much that maybe the mainstream media would have to pick this up. You see where I'm going? That if we had,
Jeff,
go ahead.
Really, it's great because there's no charge for everybody, listeners of this show. There's no charge to start. As you said, go to the hrem.org. You can start by learning about this, and then you can decide if you want to put any money. It doesn't have to be $300.
No. A matter of fact, what I would do is I wouldn't put money into that at all. I wouldn't put a dime into the hrem.org, nor would I put a dime into any of this stuff. What I would do is, if I understood it and I had the money, I would go ahead and I would make my own business card saying the hrem.org and try to explain it to as many people as possible, and get onto as many programs as possible, and maybe hire somebody personally to do social media if you can't do it yourself, to get out to all the Facebooks and the tweets and the talk shows and the TED Talks to talk about this thing, to get it out there. I wouldn't want them to put money into someone else to do the job. We want the individuals to talk about it on their own. We need to get people to come together as a group of human beings, to come together to say we need this measurement so no one begs for food. No one gets shot by some instituted dictator that we put in as the United Kings, which we are. We are part of the United Kingdom, whether we want to be or not. Just listen to your news media and what you hear on your BBC, British Broadcasting Company, or your public broadcasting company. You hear all the United Kingdom spokespeople talking about how we should be doing things, how we have to have an enemy. That's what you hear. This is a terrible, terrible thing, and we can't get out of it. But if someone understands the HREM, they don't put money to us or to me or to you. They just take and make up their own business cards, says hrem.org, and if they want to add to the website, we're more than happy to put their stuff on. If they want to get on their own radio stations, we'll give them a station, or they can make their own. They can go on to TED Talks. They can move this forward without putting money in. And if someone can just understand it and afford to put in $200 or $300 a week or a month, or whatever they can afford, but not to us. We don't want your money. We want you to use that money you have to help change the system, to change the economic system. And once you change the economic system, you will have a functional government, not a dysfunctional government. It'll be a functional government to help humanity. Because what's stopping the functional government, the helping humanity and making it dysfunctional, is it's only helping people who don't care about humanity or care about the planet. That's the point. So if anybody can afford to spend the time you and Susan and I spend on the radio and television to try to get this out, my God, man, they could do this. They could do it. Anyway, you see where I'm trying to go with this, and then we're going to do it because we do have a dictatorship, and we're going to go back to that dictator in a minute. And I want to go because you didn't agree with me last time that we have that. You said nature's beautiful. I wanted to take off on that. That thing you talked about before the last break. You said when you take a walk in the woods and you find it beautiful. And you think this is a great planet, and you want to make sure it stays this way. Right? Is that what you said earlier?
Yes, Jeff, I'm saying I would not blame nature, I would not blame our planet, and I would not blame God. I mean, anytime you say dictator, I would say, what was the word you used? Benevolent dictator.
Well, God is, but don't you think that God or nature is, look, you can't say I'm going to live forever because nature will not allow you to live forever. You are going to die by form of nature. It's part of nature's plan. No human being lives for a long period of time. We are part of renewable energy. You and I are, in fact, part of nature. All living things they are born, they die, they turn to dust. That's what religion says, dust to dust, ashes to ashes. That's what we do. That's part of God. That's part of nature. And that's not a bad thing. That's the way it is. Nature is, in fact, a dictator. You can't change that. But nature, or God, gave us a brain. And the brain says, if you keep on killing one another using all kinds of weaponry, and swords and knives and guns and now nuclear weapons, you're going to destroy your species. And you know that. I'm teaching you that. And if you continue to try to make money and you're polluting the water and the soil and the air, you're going to wipe yourselves out. And she's guaranteeing this to us. And we can see it happening. But I've given you a brain. There's a way you can stop doing this. Stop killing one another. That's what nature's telling us, or God's telling us. Stop killing your fellow man. Stop polluting your planet. Stop polluting your water. Stop polluting your air because you're going to die if you keep it up. And I'm guaranteeing you that. Now that to me sounds like a dictator. But it's a dictator that says you've got a brain. I'm teaching you not to do that anymore. You can use something you call renewable energy temporarily until you get to a better thing. You can stop killing your fellow man. You can stop overpopulating your planet. You can do all these things. My God, does that not sound like a benevolent dictator to you?
No, you're right. You're right, Jeff. That's all we have to do. But have you ever heard the word greed, Greed?
But I only look at greed. I only look at greed as an emotional substance to blame other people for our species' problems. We'll be back, and we all have to come. We all got to come together with this, because we can't keep on blaming other people for what we are doing. In other words, if everybody we spoke to, Dennis, understood that we mustn't hurt anyone, we have to get the economic system where it functions to benefit all of humanity. We have changed the entire world, and we've changed it so we don't pollute the planet. And it's you're not a greedy person, and neither am I. If I want to enjoy nature and live in the woods and walk in the woods and not kill people, that doesn't make me greedy. But if I want to make as much as I can, because I'm brought up that way, to have more ambition, and the way I help myself is work and make money so I can buy a Prius or buy another home, or work harder so my retirement's bigger, or invest money in different investments so I can make money without working for it, then I am not greedy. That's the way the system has taught me to work. It's not my fault. It's not the individual. It's not Soros's fault, or the Koch brothers' fault, or what's his name? The guy with Microsoft. It's not his fault. That's the way. Who's that?
Did you mean George Soros?
No, the guy who made
Bill Gates.
Bill Gates. We have Bill Gates. If you want to talk on the program, there's someone who called in. If they push #1 on their phone, they can possibly. We'll get them on the air. They push 1, so I know you want to be on the air. We can talk with you on the air. But the point is, Bill Gates is not greedy. He's played the game. He's lucky enough he made some money. But that doesn't make him a dictator, or it doesn't make him a bad person, or it doesn't make him greedy. It makes him a smart guy who's been lucky in the world. That's all it makes. So anyway, I want to bring out another little song. We all have to come together. And in this case, if we come together, it's We the People by, if we come together and do this, it's We the People by the Foothills Trio. We'll be back in about 5 minutes. Please hang in with us. The person on the line, if they want to call in, the number here is 347-215-6731. We have several phone lines open. And you're more than welcome to join us. And we also have a chat room open called Bridge to Humanity. If you want to be on the program, you must push 1, so I know you want to talk with us. Thank you very much. We'll be back in about 5 minutes. Somebody was on the phone and just hung up.
We the people hand in hand.
Okay.
We the people understand that there's an answer, there's a way. We the people have to say, so send the orders to prepare. That we the people do declare that the good news and the word, we the people will be heard. We the people, let's prepare. There's a message in the air, and it's moving across the land. And if you listen, you can hear it well, my friend. We know the time has come to take our heads out of the sand. 'Cause if we don't, the chance might never come again. The future is indeed not building waves of war, and the time has come for reason to be heard. The purpose of the people who want this declaration for. It's why our fathers told us, word for word, let it be heard. We the people hand in hand. We the people understand that there's an answer, there's a way. We the people have to say, So send the order to prepare, that we the people do declare. Send the good news, send the word, we the people will be heard. We the people everywhere. And we won't accept excuses, and we won't accept the lies of those who lead our nations into hell. It's time to call the bluff and take them enough. It's time we all to hear the tolling of the bell. And it's time to feed the hungry, and it's time to heal the pain, and it's time to beat our weapons into clouds. It's time to hear the voices that have risen once again. It's the voices of the people, clear and loud, singing proud. We the people, hand in hand. We the people understand that there's an answer, there's a way. We the people have to say, so send the orders to prepare, that we the people do declare. And the good news and the word, we the people will be heard. We the people everywhere. We the people, hand in hand. We the people understand that there's an answer, there's a way. We the people have to say, so send the orders to prepare, that we the people do declare. And the good news of the word, we the people will be heard. We the people, we the people, we the people.
And we are back. We the people. We the people. I gotta figure out what we're doing here. We are the back. This is World Call In, and it's Wednesday. It's brought to you by Bridges. It's brought to you by Bridges Programming. We're back. That's Dennis Carius and Susan Coleman. We're talking about dictatorships and what is the ultimate dictator. And I just want to bring out the fact that you can call in here at 347-215-6731. We have about another hour more of the programming to give you guys a voice if you want to speak us a platform. We're on Google Hangouts, and if you go on Hangouts, you'll see Illyria's World, and you'll see the HRM card, and you'll see the nonprofit company we have, we're custodians of, and you can get a free book on that for renewtheearth.org. And we're here to try to give people a voice and to make sure everybody has their basic needs met anywhere in the world. And we're discussing greed, and we're discussing dictatorships. Now, let me ask you another question. Is a dictator greedy?
Oh, you're asking, is a dictator greedy?
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, any politician is happy to be getting paid to be doing what they're doing, right?
Yeah, I mean, but don't you and I get paid when we worked our job? The more we getting paid to do what we were doing.
Well, yes, but I don't mean just getting paid hundreds or thousands of dollars. I mean, if you're getting paid millions of dollars and you're a dictator, let's say of Saudi Arabia or something, you're probably happy doing
How
that
about
job.
if you're a dictator in the Congo?
Well, yeah, you know what a dictator is.
Yeah, well, not necessarily. I mean, you don't have to have weapons to be a dictator. You just have to be. You don't need weapons to be a dictator, do you? I mean, if I can control the weather, and I say I'm going to create a flood because I think you guys are not being good, and I'm going to create a flood, or I'm going to create a drought, and I'm going to starve people to death. Would that? I don't need weapons for that. Am I a dictator?
No, I wouldn't say a dictator. I would say, though, that what's going on over in the Middle East, when we're told these people are terrorists, I really think we are being brainwashed by mainstream media when they talk about ISIS or the Sunni or the Shiites and all these people. These are people living in countries where they have dictators, and they just want freedom. You and I love freedom. We love democracy.
Dennis, you just used two words, freedom and democracy. Do you really believe that if someone's working two jobs just to make ends meet, working 16 hours a day to support themselves and their family, do you consider that freedom, or maybe 18 hours a day out of 24? Is that freedom? I know people who are busting their chops just to keep their family alive, trying to send them to college and do the job. Are they free? And then as far as freedom and democracy, do we really have democracy by only having basically 2 or 3 parties to vote for, and it doesn't matter who we put in office? Is that truly a democratic society? I mean, come on, do you really believe we have, is it just as, it's just as bad here as it is in any other country? It's just not as obvious here that we're just not dropping drones on us right now. But I mean, your system is set up where if you got your social security number, or you're enhanced by the system to take them to you know, they're literally killing people in this country because of the system. So we don't have any real freedom or democracy. You say we love freedom and democracy. You don't really have freedom and democracy here, do you?
Well, I'm comparing it to some other countries where they have real dictators. I'm just saying that you and I, growing up in this country, weren't you happy in this country having the freedom of speech, freedom of the press?
But you don't have freedom of the speech, freedom of speech in the press here. You are shunned from talking. You got to get on it like we can talk now without being shot. But basically, if we had a really big platform, they'll cut us out. We were on HRM was on Wikipedia for 6 months, and they pulled us off of that. So there goes our freedom of speech. They wouldn't let us on next because we were changing. We could have possibly changed the system. And you could talk about abortion till the cows come home, or you could talk about religion till the cows come home. They don't care because you're not going to change anything. But if you talk about the economic system, my God, man, they'll change you. And you can't get an economist to come on the program to talk about if the economy is a belief system. But meanwhile, on the mainstream media, you hear about the Dow Jones average and the whatever they call the stock market. The stock market wasn't feeling good today. I mean, you hear all this crap.
Right, Susan?
Yeah, it had a stomach-ache, the stock market.
Stock market's not. Stock market didn't
come out of its house today because it wasn't feeling well.
So and I just want to get back to Dennis's comment, because it's really important that he walks into nature, and he walks around the area that has lots of houses there, and they've taken over trees and they've displaced bear and beaver and all kinds of animals to put in a society that makes money. And he's saying that that nature's not a dictator, but eventually, if we don't wake up, those houses and those streets you're walking on are going to be taken over by nature. They'll wipe human species right out. Nature will wipe us off the planet if we don't stop poisoning the atmosphere and the soil and the water with fracking and global warming, or the stuff we are producing.
Meanwhile, we're not hearing this. we're not hearing nature anymore. Like we clearly could hear it. When we were living more closely with nature as a farming, species. But now we're so far away from the soil and the trees and the landscape around us, because oftentimes we live in cities, as we were talking about earlier, and that's where our jobs are, and that's where we have to be to make money so that we can live.
But the reality is, but the money is irrelevant. The money is a middleman that's making. Go ahead.
The problem is, Jeff, the thing I'm trying to get to is that we're not hearing from nature anymore. We're not hearing about what is really necessary for the human species to survive. What we're hearing is the human propaganda. We're hearing, you need to do this. You need to get this kind of education to get this kind of job. You need to live here. You need to behave in this way. You need to own these certain things. That's not really, those are, and you need to cooperate with the dictates of your social construct where you live. You don't take a different stand on what's important to everyone in whatever situation. What's most important to a capitalist economy is how much money it's going to be made, what the bottom line is going to be. This has nothing to do with dignified survival of anything, and it has nothing to do with what nature keeps telling us about the ultimate survival of our species, of the human species.
A good example, Susan. A good example when they tell us you need to hydraulically fracture the ground. When they talk about hydrofracking, to get more of this fossil fuel out of the ground. That's not helping nature either. Hydraulic, hydrofracking.
Well, but that's my whole point. If we continue to do what we're doing, our dictator, which is Mother Nature or God, is going to say, okay, you poisoned your water, you poisoned the air, therefore we're going to stop giving you food, you will die out. And then those beautiful roads you've got that you're walking on now, there'll be no more people. So eventually trees will fall down, they'll grow up, they'll break through the concrete. They will then, in millions of years, get rid of the houses, will crumble, this old house will crumble, the glass will deplete. In 1 million or 2 million years, and humanity may or may not come back, but the planet will renegotiate with whatever species she wants to put back here. But right now, we have the ability to know what we're doing, and we have the brain to say, let's fix the economic system so all human beings have their basic needs met, because we can now measure it the same way we measure gravity, the same way we learned that the planet was not flat. We learn these things. We have the mind that nature or God gave us to be benevolent, so we can not allow ourselves as a species to be wiped out. We must go ahead and allow using our brain to continue to grow the species in a manner that doesn't kill one another and wipe out the planet. If we have a nuclear war, we will wipe out our species, plus probably a lot of other species. The planet will probably still be here. It may look differently for a few billion years, but in a few billion years, something else will come back. I have no doubt about that. We don't need to save the planet. We need to use our God-given or our intellectual brain that we've been evolving with, which is minute. And we can probably, if we just put this simple measurement in place, the HREM.org. Just name it. Let's measure it, because we can do it now. We have that ability. And say no human being should be without education, food, or shelter for minimal amount of time met. That'll change the economic system, which will probably stop us from fracking, probably stop us from polluting. We'll have a political system that becomes functional because it's now working to help humanity. And all our problems will not totally be solved, but it'll be on a start to really have a sane economy that doesn't hurt people. That's the point of the whole program. We want to be able to figure out what's wrong. I don't want to find out. We know what's wrong. That everybody in the world can tell you what's the matter with the problem. We have a dysfunctional government. We have greedy people. We have those people over there. Those people over there need to be wiped out. We have to get rid of them. No, we do not have to do any of this stuff. We don't need to use greed or wait for a third party to come about. We don't need that. What we need is just people to come about and help make the system work. And that's where I'm coming from, I think. Go ahead. Oh, I have somebody who wants to come on the line. Let me get him on. I'm going to put him on the line and see what he thinks. I'm just curious. I didn't ask him where he's from or anything, but we're going to put him on here. Hello, caller. You're on the line.
Good morning. I'm a new listener. I just dialed in. I do not have a question, but I just wanted to say good morning to you people, and especially to Dennis. My name is Maria.
God bless you. No, really. Thank you. And please, you can stay on and listen, and at any time, just put in your thoughts. That's great that
so far, I agree with all of you, Dennis. I think you're so right. We've got to do something, or we're going to ruin the planet.
Well, the thing is, I want to ask you a question. I don't think we're not going to ruin the planet. The planet is a dictator. And it says to us, I'm giving you a brain so you don't screw up the water, the soil, and the air. You have the ability as a species to use that ability and not be wiped out. This planet will probably be here, as far as I can see with my pea brain, forever. But we will not. So if we continue to poison the water, the air, and the soil, then we will be wiped out as a species. So this whole program is about a benevolent dictator. And what we're trying to say is that nature, or God, if you want to be religious about it, is a benevolent dictator, much more so than the people we put in on our economic gain. And anybody should be able to say, listen, we now can learn, just like we learned about gravity, that no one should go without education, food, or shelter for a minimal amount of their lifetime. You get rid of minimum wage because you have now a living wage. You get rid of welfare because everyone has their basic needs met for about an hour a day of their work. They're working for it because they're putting back to the society. And when I hear people say, "Well, how can you afford that?" Well, let me tell you a little story. The biggest creator of inflation is the stock market, because I'm making money by investing money, putting nothing back into the system. And everyone has to put something back to help physically, in physics, to help the other people and help the planet. So if we keep on polluting what we're doing, it's a negative. So we need to have positive thinking, and we have a brain. Now, I'm not the brightest bulb in the world, and most people I know who think they are bright bulbs, they're intellectually paralyzed because they think everything is going along great. So we're suggesting that this HRM, this concept of the human renewable energy measure, is just a simple measurement like gravity would be. How it's instituted is up to the individual. But no human being, no matter where they are in the world, should ever have to beg for food or shelter or be lacking of education. And they should have to work just whatever they require. Bringing up a child takes a tremendous amount of work. If you're helping somebody, someone who can't function, that takes work, and that's part of helping society. That's all basic needs must be met. And then you allow your free market, your subjective market, like Dennis talks about, greed. Yeah. So what I'm saying is
very interesting, and I listen now and then when I can. But I just wanted to say good morning and wish all of you very well with your.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much for calling in.
Oh, you're very welcome. And thank
You're
you.
a great guest. Thank you.
Okay, dear.
Take care.
I think
Yes,
that we can,
Susan.
Jeff,
Yeah.
from what I'd like to take off from what you were just saying.
Go ahead.
History has shown us over and over again that there's huge economic disparity anywhere in the world. I mean, just take the examples, present day examples of the economic disparity in the Middle East and in the countries that we send our troops to. There's huge differences in the way that people live and what they have access to as far as, improving their lives or even getting jobs. They have to leave their countries oftentimes just to find work and then send money back to their relatives, who couldn't leave. This is not uncommon. This has been going on for, at least 30 years now or more. Very, very common practice in Africa, in South America, in the Middle East, in the Soviet Union. But all you have to do, is go back to, the last war that we keep calling the good war, or, the great generation or whatever, that our fathers fought in, and most of them are dead now, if they lived through the war. But the reason for the Second World War was the huge disparity of economic income in Germany. The people were, desperate. The country was separated between, the economics had completely fallen apart there, and people were separating into, the scapegoat situation, was being escalated to blame, certain populations for all the economic problems of Germany. And you see anytime there's huge disparity like this and people unable to provide the basic needs for their families and for themselves, you're going to have a very the opportunity for incredible tragedy and more war and suffering and misunderstandings between peoples and that lasts for generations. Because once violence is done, it takes generations for this to dissipate, if ever. It's carried on, from one misunderstanding to another, because we're really all basically the same. It's what we're trying to say with the HRM. But there's all kinds of propaganda out there that's trying to separate us. We are the same in the eyes of nature. We need the same things, the same amount of calories or nutrition. We need the same amount of education to be able to speak and communicate and to understand each other, and then to go to other levels of understanding, creative levels or inventive levels. We all need shelter because unlike many of the creatures on this earth, we're not born with fur and we can't easily make our environment, our housing out of available caves and things like that. We used to, that's true. But now we're a little more elaborate about it. We need a certain amount of heating and things like that. However we do it. But I just, when we see these disparities, the economic disparities, that's where all of these other horrible symptoms arise. The wars, on every level, people are arguing over what political, socioeconomic, or political system is the right system, and they're so people can get incredibly agitated about these things, and then whatever religion is the best religion, of course you can get incredibly agitated about that. And these are unnecessary. I mean, these are unnecessary arguments. These are unnecessary, rifts between people. It's the jumping to the scapegoating of a group in order to say, this is why I'm suffering. This is why I'm not able to support my family, and I have to leave my family in order to find work in another country. If you just look at it, it's all economics. It's all the distribution of the essential needs, and it's not being done with any kind of system or intelligence right now. It's all helter-skelter. It's,
it isn't helter-skelter. It's actually contrived by the very wealthy people. And if you look at the zeitgeist moving forward, by the way, you will see, and they say it's in awe of how they've manipulated the economic system, the advertisements, the lights, the way they're manipulating the media to promote this economic system, how we have to keep on being slaves to it. Did you get a chance to look at that zeitgeist moving forward, Dennis, by some chance?
No. I will be looking at it. But Jeff, after we take our break, I'd like to just talk about that topic of we started education, food, and shelter in this country by having free education for students in grade school and high school. But I'd like to talk about what happens when a student is 18 years old, ready for college, how expensive it is, what the alternative is, such as going overseas in the military to make it affordable. But after we take our break, I'd like to talk about that.
Okay, and we'll go through that, and then we'll see why it's like that and what really is the problem. We'll be back, and this is a woman who said, her name is Kim Wallach, and she says that we know that the wars and the guns and the armies are not really going to help us, but she says it in a very nice, cute way about she just eats French fries, and you can believe in God, and you can believe in tofu or whatever. She's a really great little song, and it's called "We All Eat French Fries" by Kim Wallach, and it's please listen to the words. It's a great song. We'll be right back in 2 minutes.
This whole world has trouble. Everyone knows there's garbage in all of our lives. We try to get through it each our own way. And for me, I just eat French fries. Some they take vitamins A, B, and C. Tofu, granola, brown rice. They all give me wheat germs and brewer's yeast, and I put it on my French fries. Some watch the stars, have their charts done, and read all about every sign. I wonder if Saurians every full moon sneak out like me on French fries. Some got religion, devotion, and guilt, charity and grace are divine. I hear things are hotter than ever in hell, but in heaven, do they have French fries? Some say the army, bombs and guns will one day save all of our lives. I don't believe it. Heat up your pans, make peace, and lots of French fries. This whole world has trouble. Everyone knows there's garbage in all of our lives. We try to get through it each our own way, and for me, I just eat French fries.
Oh, thank you, Kim Wallach. That's for me. I just eat French fries. We all try to get through it each our own way. And the problem is that a lot of people are dying getting through it. And now, Dennis, you were going to talk about. We started getting this way. We started getting this way with free high school, which really wasn't free, and you know, food and you know. I know we're working toward that. I mean, you know, an education system is very important, and we knew that. We all went to kindergarten through high school, but I think that was also to get our economic system so we have people who are qualified to work within the economic system. And if they work within the economic system, they make money, and then the people who are hiring them make even more money. Now, was that considered greed if I hire 10 people to work for me for $10 an hour? And I'm making $20 an hour on their labor. So I'm now making, for 10 people, I'm making $100 an hour because they're working for me for $10 an hour each. So I'm doubling their income to me, and I'm charging somebody else for it. Does that make me a greedy person?
No, but there are limits to what you're doing to make that money. There are some limits. If you want to get that oil under the ground.
No, but who's to decide what the limits would be?
Well, that's very easy. If you just, you know, turn on the news and you see that 2,000 children were killed at the Gaza Strip.
But
that's wrong.
Well, I may think it's wrong, but who's to decide that I'm wrong? Who's to decide that? Why does that have anything to do with the money that I'm trying to make? If 2,000 people are killed, that has nothing to do with me whatsoever. I'm just trying to make my money on the people who are working for me. What's wrong with the way that system works?
No, and believe me, there's nothing wrong with it. If I'm selling you, let's say, oil for $1 a gallon, and you buy it from me for $1 and you turn around and sell it for $2 a gallon, there's nothing wrong with that. I love the concept of the free market as we were growing up learning about the free market. I love that. But there is something wrong if you're told that oil over in the Middle East, you can get it from under the ground for free.
Hold it. Let me go back to this free market thing. Supposing you need a job and you're willing to work for me for, let's say, like $10 an hour figure. And I say to you, I want you to go climb on that roof for $10 an hour, or trim trees for me. And you say to me, wait a minute, but it's not safe. I may fall off the ladder or fall off that, or get cut with a chainsaw. And I say, I don't care. I'm not paying you $10 an hour. I'm not going to pay you anything unless you climb up on that roof, or use that chainsaw, or paint my car, or do something, and you're going to die. Now, I don't care, because I'm still making my $10 an hour on you. And if you don't work, you're going to stop. Now, am I being greedy when I do that? Or do I have the right to say, I'm not hiring you? Then you're going to have to do that work. If you're going to have to work for 25 hours to make ends meet. Because you can't do it for $10 an hour because it costs you $20 an hour to live. So you got to work all the time to get your food and shelter. Now, am I being greedy? Because I've got my food and shelter because I got 10 of you working for me. And I'm making double my money on every one of you, so I'm making a living much better. You guys are killing yourself to try to stay alive. Does that make me greedy?
Well, do I have to kill myself to stay alive?
Well, yeah, because you're not going to get your food or your shelter unless you're working for me.
Well, why do I have to work for you? Can't I go and find a better job?
But every job in the area is the same way. I mean, you can look for another job, but that's the trouble with the way the system is now. Is people are looking for better work, but the economic system is dictating that I can get someone to work cheaper than you can work for. And I just go ahead and if they die doing it, so what?
Well, there are limits. I mean, that's what the government is for.
But the government is being controlled by the people who are running the economy. They're changing the laws. As a matter of fact, they're changing the laws about fracking. They're changing the laws about oil and how much spillage you can have. They actually have a law that says you can't dump chemicals into the ocean because you can be fined up to $2 million. But if you're making $25 million, it's very good business to dump the chemicals into the water. And if someone gets caught, if a few times they get caught out of the thousands of times they're dumping harsh chemicals into the ocean, then they just pay off the guy, give him a lifetime worth of money, and they pay the fine, and they continue to do it because it's very good business to make more money.
So do you think our government should set some limits that would be illegal for people to do?
It is illegal. They have limits. It's about $25,000 or 25. I forget the number. It doesn't matter. It's very high limits, but they have to get caught. But if you have no police out there, because we can't afford to put the cops on to catch the people, they'll never get caught. And the few times they do get caught, so they pay their fine, and they pay off the guy who's doing the damage, so he doesn't go to jail, and they'll give him retirement for the rest of his life, or give him a job. But I know people who've been doing that. They've gone to jail for like 5 or 7 years because they did something illegal with chemicals or with asbestos. And then they come out, and then when they come out, they got a phenomenal job for the rest of their life.
You know what's interesting about this, about policing, or keeping up with what oil companies are dumping into our oceans and all around the world. I mean, just look at one of the most recent spills. I mean, I'm not talking about Santa Barbara, which is really recent, but the spill that occurred in the Gulf about 3 years ago. Quickly, they were unable to tell people where most of that leakage went because it sank deep, deep, and actually they sank it with detergents. They actually made it sink and down, to the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico, where it still is. And it's like a big, thick pudding down there. And it's of course stifling, for thousands and thousands and thousands of acres of the floor of the Gulf of Mexico. It's stifling any life that was thriving there, and it'll be who knows how many hundreds of years for that to recover. But to trace or to know where this dumping is going or what's happening is almost impossible. I mean, if you live on a boat and you're in distress out in the ocean, the chances of even the Coast Guard coming out to try and help you are so slim that you might as well not even call them. So you're talking about monitoring how many rigs all around the world. I mean, I can't even imagine how many there are off of almost every continent, off of every continent in the world, and usually they're at least 3 miles off or more. You can see them in the distance when you're out in the ocean. You can see a rig, another 10 miles out, 3 miles out. I just wanted to see 3 miles at a time, with the human eye. But before the curvature of the Earth interferes. But it's a joke. You can't monitor these big companies and where they're dumping stuff. The only thing we become aware of is when a tanker collides with with something and breaks apart, and it's an obvious spill all over the surface of the water, or a pipeline bursts, or as in the case of the Gulf, a whole oil rig explodes, and for months it's pumping crude oil into the Gulf of Mexico, and you can have as many laws as you want. If people aren't, if people are determined to make money and to avoid the laws, they will, and it's very easy for them to do. I mean, anything out on the ocean, it's like it's still very, very difficult to access, almost impossible to monitor. any of the activities out on the water, you see these are vast areas of water that we're talking about. And very few people are out there. You know, there are oil rigs out there. You know, they're out there. There are a few fishermen and boaters, but they don't normally go too far from the shore because unless there's a big game fisherman, and that's a very small group. It's ridiculous. You know, the laws have, I'd say they have probably no impact at all because they cannot be enforced. We have no way to enforce them. I mean, I don't even think people get fined normally unless there's some huge catastrophe like, you know, the one in the Gulf, and then they could really pin it on BP and they could really, you know, make an example of the CEO, and, you know, he had to retire on his meager pension of a couple of $1 million a year, you know, whatever. It's just, you know, and they got some fines, you know, which they could well afford if they have had, you know, what? We've been going on with this for more than 100 years, building up profit for these oil companies. And they're making the most they've ever made. You know, since the economy collapsed, they've been making even more money. You know, it's escalating. Not, you know, it has nothing to do with what's happening to anyone else in their economics, their personal economics. You know, it has nothing to do with that. We are enhancing their profit constantly. You know, because of the way that we live. We have to buy fuel for transportation. We have to get to our jobs. Manufacturing continues because people think they need new stuff. It's incredible. You know, the cycle that
there isn't enough work. Well, Dennis, you see, so you're going back to the fact that, well, we were starting this way, so therefore you're right. We are getting there, but we need to get a measurement set up so we don't continue to pollute the ground, poison the water, poison the air, and kill one another. And the only way to do that is to measure it not in money, like you say, $1 billion is too much for someone to make. Well, there's no way to say that because you don't know what $1 billion is. But you could say that all you need to start with is your basic food, which is 1 million calories of food that the sun produces. You can turn those calories into any kind of energy unit you want, by the way, but they'll always remain the same. They can't be changed. You know that it takes about a certain amount of energy units to distill the water, the salt water, to make fresh water to put on a planet. That's what the sun does, the solar energy does. And it takes a certain amount of energy units that you can actually measure to figure out what it takes to build something for shelter, depending upon what kind of shelter you want. And you can figure out a minimum amount of energy usage for that. And then you can say that we only live about 80 years of age, more or less. Some people will live 120, as you say, and some people will die maybe at 60 and 50 and even 40. But on the average, we'll live about 80 years of age. So those numbers, those measurements can be put together in another name, such as, for instance, I'll give you a for instance, like we have speed. Well, speed is measured for the amount of time it takes to go a certain distance. And we have miles per hour or speed. It takes two measurements to measure miles per hour, distance and time. We're saying age of a human being and the amount of energy it takes for their food and shelter and of course their knowledge, but that's not a measurable thing. But their age and food and shelter gives us a new measurement called the HREM, the Human Renewable Energy Measure, similar to that of speed or gravity, these are things we learned. And Susan mentioned earlier that if you're standing on shore, or you're standing on the ground, the most you can see is a little over 3 miles. That's why if you go higher in the air, you can see more. You can see further. That's why they had crow's nests or things you climbed on boats and you can see further than 3 miles. And that's one of the ways we figured out that the planet wasn't really flat; it was round. I mean, we figured that out as a species. Because the higher we got, the further we could see. So we knew the curvature of the planet. That's how we learned those things.
Around the
Right. So we figured some people figured that out. So what you're saying, though, Dennis, is that, correct me if I'm wrong, that when we were growing up, we had free education from kindergarten through high school. Is that right?
Oh, yes, right.
But it really wasn't free. It was part of people working a little bit every day, and they put it into tax structure, so they built schools with that tax structure, and they hired teachers. And we paid it through our tax structure. Now, certain people didn't have any money, so they didn't pay taxes. But the people who made more money, paid more taxes. And if you bought a home, they figured out how much of value your home was and how much you paid in your school taxes. And they're doing the same thing today. Is that true or not?
I'd say true.
Okay. Now you're saying after that you have to pay to go to college. And since a lot of people couldn't afford that because of the economic system, is the government said if you join our service, if you join the military, we will give you your education for free, or for part of your working for us as a military. However, you're going to have to kill people for us. And then when they came back from the military, even if they had a degree, which they don't get anymore, by the way, then they would theoretically get a better job because they had their education. So this is all based on money. And then you have the other problem, the sad, as you say, the very sad problem, is that when they come back, they have mixed emotions, cognitive dissonance, where they had been taught never to kill people, but going overseas, they say, go into that house and kill as many people as you can, be it men, women, and children. They don't care. Just kill them because they're our enemy. But they're not. They're real people. So the person coming back, who theoretically got this education, is now screwed over because he's been killing people against his better judgment. Is that what you're saying?
And the rate of suicide is so high.
Right, but
the less troops coming back home.
Right, so we can add that to the mix. But it's all because of the economic system. That's the problem. So the question then is, what do we do about this? And I can tell you for a fact, in my belief system, that nature will not allow us to keep doing this. Nature is the ultimate dictator. And she or he or it is saying to us, if you continue to kill one another with nuclear bombs, and you continue to poison the water trying to make money with things like fracking, or continue to pump the oil out of the ground, which I've taught you that you can use to enhance your labor. Now you know better, you can use renewable energy without damaging the planet quite so much. And you've got to be careful because the economic system starts to lie to you. It doesn't tell you the truth. Like if you start using wood pellets, which I've heard on the media, mainstream media the other day, I'm sure it's the coal company putting this out, that if the economic system dictates that you use lots of wood pellets, they're going to start cutting trees down because wood pellets are going to be the thing to do. So we need to figure out a way that we don't keep on destroying our natural resources to keep ourselves working to help the system. And they're calling it biomass, fuel. But the reality is it's not really renewable because they're cutting it down faster than it can regrow the pellets for heating.
Yeah, but that doesn't have to be that way.
Right, because we have to figure out a way to sustain it. Right?
There are lots of wood pellet technologies that are from waste products that is not and then also fast growing crops and trees that can be regrown.
Or we could use geothermal, which would do even better. But geothermal is now expensive. Right, it's expensive. So supposing we print money, we print money to say we're going to build heating units in parts of the world that are geothermal. That we're going to use solar and geothermal, so we don't have to burn things and put it into the atmosphere. We don't have to burn coal or fossil fuel. We're going to just use the solar technology, which is the sun that heats the ground, that takes the stuff out of the atmosphere. Then when the sun comes out again, it reheats it again. So we use the solar that the sun puts in the ground for our heat sink, take it out when we need it, and put it back in the sun for air conditioning. Using solar for the heat pumps, because we have a brain and we can do that. Wow, that's the way I think we should want to go. Now, I can't afford to put geothermal in, but I know that the technology is out there. So supposing I go to my bank and I say, I want you to get the government. I say, I'm going to borrow geothermal money. And we're going to put geothermal, and I'm going to get a loan for geothermal. The minute I get my loan for geothermal, I take that and I build my stuff with it. And it costs me pennies on a dollar when I borrow it. And the minute I put that in my property, so I have now heat from the sun, it hits the bank again, and the bank destroys the money. And they just made just a few cents on my labor. So I have the best technology I could have to heat my home. What a concept this could be. And this could happen for solar and for all capital improvement things. And that's the thing you'll see on Zeitgeist moving forward. It's not my concept. That's the very back of the education thing about the Zeitgeist stuff. And where money comes from, money as debt. You should look at that, because it's so important to understand that there's ways of explaining this that are really well done. And we should put that out there. Now, when you look for your next house, Dennis, what are you going to be looking for?
Oh, I would be looking for Jeff's house.
No, seriously, what are you going to be looking for?
No, I just look for a house that doesn't have to have, room for 6 or 8 people. I mean, I'm just looking for a fairly small house that's in good shape. That's all.
And does it have to be? How about if you can build one out of a cardboard box? Would that work?
No, I would not use a cardboard box. Definitely not.
Okay, because you want something that's basically energy efficient, with good windows in it, and a good solid heating system, and maybe a way that has a view that's enjoyable when you walk out of the house. You see some trees and some birds. I mean, these are things you're going to be looking for, right?
Well, the most important thing is the roof. What's on our roof? Did you ever hear of something called solar panels?
Well, why would you want to put them on your roof, though, Dennis?
Well, why would I want to have them on my roof?
Yeah.
Because the sun, the energy comes from above, comes right down. Look at all those roofs out there, Jeff. All of those roofs. Imagine if we had solar panels on all of our roofs. Some people say, we can't afford to put the money in that. Well, look at over 50% of our federal tax dollars goes to our troops overseas. The military costs us 58% of our federal tax money.
Well, wait, hold on. Supposing I say I'll take the money out of the military, but I don't want to put it on my roof, because if the roof goes bad, I got to take those solar panels off and fix them, because we're going to find down the road, I can tell you this for a fact, when everybody who puts these things on their roof, if they have a roof that'll disintegrate with the fossil fuel or a shingle roof, when those things start to leak, they got to pull the whole damn solar panels off the roof. Then they got to re-shingle it and put the solar panels back. I'm saying to you, you should have solar panels, but they should be put on a building or put on a carport. It doesn't matter what happens. There's no shingles below it. So do the most energy efficient thing you can do, and don't, because 20 years from now you're going to have to pull all these damn panels off and put no shingles on and put them back on. So you need to have a roof that is never going to wear out. Don't you see the problem we're running into?
I second the motion. We can do that first, Jeff. The first thing we can do out there is put solar panels all over there. But then next, we can also put them on our own roofs too.
Okay, here we go. We're going to have to take out of here. See you later. Thank you all for listening.
Neighbors out of work because they closed the factory. You try to stretch your paycheck, but it's never quite enough. So energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone, well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy. Fossil fuel affects our lives like ripples on a lake. Cars and farms and factories and stocks. Supplies go down and prices soar, our futures are at stake. And when it's gone, it won't come back, and we'll be out of luck. Oh, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone, well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy. We can get our energy from corn and grass and trees. Even trash converts to biofuels. Break loose from the stranglehold of oil companies. Renewables can fuel the world. We're here to spread the news. No energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone, well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy.